Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today for our preview party for What's Next America. I'm Christine Fernando. I'm NIFI's Communications and Creative Coordinator, but today I will be our party coordinator. I'm really excited for all of you to be here and to learn more about this project. It's required months of hard work, and it's also built on decades of deliberative experience as well. So, this is a really proud moment, an exciting moment for all of us on the team. So thank you for sharing it with us. To get us started here today, we wanted to do a fun little activity in the chat before we launch in. So if you're able to get in on the chat, feel free to let us know what is your name, where are you tuning in from, what is your organization or institution, if applicable, and what is your civic superpower. And while y'all are doing that, I can share my own. As I said, I'm Christine Fernando. I'm tuning in from Chicago, my absolute favorite city in the world. And my civic superpower is my storytelling skills, especially within communities that have been historically underserved, which is a huge passion of mine and a through line in my career. So turning to the chat, I'm already seeing a flood coming in here. So I'll share a few that we're seeing. Scott from Interfaith America says his civic superpower is connecting. That's awesome. I'm seeing Willow say my civic superpower is building relationships. John says his superpower is research design and innovation. Let's see what else is up here. Allison says their civic superpower is analytical questioning. Matt's is making work fun. That's really important. That kind of encapsulates a lot of what we're trying to do today by doing the work, but also having a lot of fun with it. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in and also sharing a little bit about yourselves. All of these are so fun, and we'll definitely keep an eye on them as they come in. So before we really launch in with the rest of the party here today, we want to take a look at our party plan, aka our agenda. So we're starting off with an introduction to NIFI from our incredible board chair and incredible executive director before moving on to some interviews with thought leaders whose work formed really the foundation of What's Next America. Then we'll have a preview of resources available through What's Next America, some partner spotlights, and of course, we'll share how you all can get involved as well. And we'll also have some more fun interactive activities sprinkled in throughout. And unfortunately, we won't have very much time for questions during this hour. So in the end, we added an after party where we can gather, celebrate a little bit, and you can all ask questions and connect with the NIFI team. But as we go, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat as well. And we can always scroll back up and keep track of those at the end of the hour as well. But for now, I want to introduce our wonderful board chair, Holly Cost. Dr. Holly Cost is a professor of special education, a former city council member, and former mayor of the city of Montevallo, Alabama. And she currently serves as Assistant Vice President for University Outreach and Public Service at Auburn University. Thank you, Holly, so much for being here.
Thank you, Christine. It is an honor to be here. And it's really an honor to have the privilege of serving as the chair of the NIFI Board of Directors. I especially love a party, so the fact that this is a party is just right on point for me. But on behalf of the board, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for being a part of this special preview of What's Next America. Days like this remind us of how fortunate NIFI is to be surrounded by such thoughtful partners, friends, and supporters. And I do see so many friends here. I also love reading about your superpowers. I think some of you are underselling yourself, just saying. But as a board, one of our most important responsibilities is to help steward NIFI's mission with care. We want to honor the organization's long history at over 4 decades while supporting the leadership, creativity, and the vision needed for what comes next. I am so grateful for the entire NIFI team and the many partners, which include you, who've helped bring this work to life. The board is very proud to support this initiative, and we're excited for you to get this early look today. So thanks for showing up, for believing in NIFI's work, and for being part of the community to help us carry it forward. So party on, dudes.
Thank you so much, Holly, for the introduction. And as we're introducing ourselves, we also wanted to take a minute to ask you all what has brought you here today. So we have a quick poll, and you can select all that apply. And the poll is going to ask you what brought you here today. And I'll give you all a moment to answer that question as it pops up on your screens. That's awesome. We're seeing a lot of existing partners and friends of NIFI. Thank you so much for being here. And we're also seeing a lot of new faces to NIFI here as well. Especially excited to see all of you join this little party that we're having. So, especially for the newer faces, I'd love to turn it over to our wonderful executive director, Kristen Bronner, to introduce us to NIFI and to deliberation.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the What's Next America preview party. This project has been taking shape in our hearts and minds and conversations, late night edits in the documents and drafts for quite some time. And it's a real joy to begin sharing it more widely with friends and partners who care deeply about the future of our communities and our country. Also, want to take a moment to say how proud I am of the NIFI team. This work represents so much creativity, thoughtfulness, listening, revision, and care. It's pushed us to ask big questions about what communities need right now and how we can support people moving from conversation to shared direction and meaningful action. I'm deeply grateful for the staff, board members, partners, and friends who've helped shape this effort today. To date, and look forward to working with so many of you to continue shaping it moving forward. At the same time, even though we're at a launch moment, we know this work did not begin with us. What's Next America builds on decades of work by people across the country who have believed in the capacity of communities to think together, work through hard questions, and take responsibility for the future they share. We're standing on the shoulders of many practitioners, organizers, educators, civic leaders, community members, and partners who have carried this work forward in different ways for a very long time. As our country approaches its 250th birthday, we have an opportunity not only to look back, but to ask what kind of communities and country we want to help build for the next 250 years. We know this work is vital. Across the country, many people are tired, divided, and unsure whether their voices matter. Many of us may feel that way today, or that we can do anything about the issues that they care about. We also know that people care deeply about where they live. They want to be heard, they want to solve problems, they want to find a way forward together. That is what this initiative is designed to support, communities coming together locally to talk, decide, and act on the issues that matter most to them. So today is a celebration, but it's also an invitation. We're so excited to give you a first look at what we have been building and even more excited to imagine what comes next together. But first, for those of you who may not have interacted with us before, may not know much about us, I want to start with the core belief that animates everything we do at the National Issues Forums Institute. We believe that solving public problems requires public participation. For more than 40 years, NIFI has worked from the premise that democracy is strengthened when people are equipped not just to talk, but to decide and act together on the issues that affect their lives. We do this by equipping, empowering, and mobilizing people to use deliberation to take action for the public good. If you're not familiar with deliberation, we wanted to give you just a quick intro. So, what is it? At its core, deliberation is both a civic practice and a decision making process. Deliberation strengthens democracy when individuals, institutions, and governments find ways to talk and work with one another, especially when problems are complex and disagreement is real. Deliberation helps people understand how an issue affects their lives, what others are experiencing, and what values are at stake. Participants then weigh options, examine trade offs, and make judgments together about what direction makes the most sense given competing concerns and values. Deliberative decision making leads individuals, groups, and institutions to identify concrete next steps and shared responsibilities. What's Next America is at its heart a deliberative decision making practice that promotes collaborative problem solving. It is also rooted in work that was done by people in many communities across the country over decades to talk, decide, and act on real issues that face their communities. For that story, What's Next origin story, if you will, we'll hear from the amazing Betty Knighton. Betty is the former president of the National Issues Forums Institute. She also served for many years as the executive director of the West Virginia Center for Civic Life, where she worked with partners to launch What's Next West Virginia more than a decade ago. What's next? I consider Betty a mentor and a friend. I've always referred to her as my Center for Civic Life big sister. And we're deeply honored that Betty not only inspired much of the programming for What's Next America, but is part of the effort leading and designing What's Next America today. So I'll hand it over to Christine, who will bring Betty in to share more of the origin story.
Thank you so much to our awesome executive director. Now, I am super grateful to introduce an absolute titan in the deliberation space, the one and only Betty Knighton, for a live interview about her work with What's Next for West Virginia, which really formed a lot of the basis of What's Next America. Thank you so much, Betty, for being here. To start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you saw such a need for a program like What's Next West Virginia, and just take us through the origin story a little.
Well, one thing I'll start by saying about myself is that I have loved being part of this work for decades. And I have connected with so many of you who are on this call and have appreciated learning from your work. And I'm very excited to be here with people that I haven't met yet and hope that we get to connect sometime in the future. As Kristen mentioned, I've worked with the West Virginia Center for Civic Life and the National Issues Forums Institute, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this work right now. As far as what made us realize there was a need, I'll have to confess, the need was always there. We had to learn ways to respond to that need. For quite a while, and by we, I mean the Center for Civic Life and so many partners throughout the state of West Virginia, we had been helping other people convene deliberative forums, some on national issues, some on state, and some on local issues. And in that experience, we often saw how much people in those discussions really valued the opportunity to think through an issue that affected their lives, and to connect with others who had different points of view. That was very valuable to them. We also saw that the people who were the most engaged with and appreciative of those experiences of talking together in that way were the most willing and eager to continue to connect with each other and to work on some of the actions that they had considered together. Now, that doesn't apply to everybody, but that applied to quite a few people. So we had to get to work to try to develop some flexible processes that would expand a more comprehensive set of practices that would include what comes before deliberative forums and what might follow. And we were very aware that we're now talking about a very different time frame. Quite a lot can be accomplished in an individual forum in terms of people's understanding of an issue, their understanding of why others would have different points of view, what trade-offs and consequences might be a part of various ways forward. But if you're thinking about talking together thoroughly enough and over time in order to determine what might be useful to be done in your community, well, that takes a longer trajectory. And so we had to begin thinking about how to develop practices that help people focus more on the planning processes, on convening, especially reaching out to people who weren't typically involved, people who had different life experiences, different backgrounds. We had to develop more adaptable resources to help people use for the deliberations in their own communities. And most of all, we had to focus on moving to action. So the first thing we did was we formed a statewide planning team. This was nonprofits, faith groups, the media, businesses, developmental organizations, community foundations, all of us working at a statewide level to try to develop practices that could have local applications. And by local, I mean that what we developed and helped share with them and help and continued with them could be a neighborhood, it could be a campus, it could be a town, it could be a county, it could be a panhandle. In West Virginia, we have two of them. And those are tight regions that could easily work together. And we developed a set of questions that could be used to help people frame their own issues and then deliberate about them in ways that allowed action ideas to emerge, and then for them to stay together to take the actions. Now, the questions are going to sound very simple. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? How will we get there? They're straightforward. They're actually very stimulating and multifaceted when you really dig into them. There's quite a lot of complexity in that simplicity. Think about asking those questions within your workplace or asking those questions within your family. think a lot of deliberation would take place. People would have different ideas about how to respond to all of those. We also developed practices to help people talk over time in multiple discussions and then move into action planning and action implementation. And in West Virginia, the term action summits seemed to take hold. You could call them whatever you want, but we helped people think about practices to develop action summits and then action teams, which allowed people to work over time, stay connected with one another, but work in a variety of ways on the issues that they had identified.
That's really helpful, Betty. So also, can you talk us through some of the types of issues that people addressed and the actions that they took together as a community as well?
It was such a wide range, as it would be in any state. But many of them were quite interconnected, as a lot of public issues are. Some related to health, such as access to health services, access to healthy food, especially in rural areas, education about health, a lot of focus on addiction. Related to the economy, a lot of concern about job loss in West Virginia, homelessness, population loss, especially of young adults. A lot of them related to education, such as early childhood education or dropout prevention. But you can easily see the overlap between health, the economy, education, and a whole range of other issues there. Some of the actions that they took, some were very, when I say quick and easy, they weren't necessarily easy, but they were fairly quick. There was a large rural county that was having a major problem with opiate addiction. And they realized that while there were a lot of AA meetings in the county, there was not a single Narcotics Anonymous group. And so within 6 weeks, they had found a church to become a local sponsor. They had found leadership. They had even found people who volunteered to give rides to people who needed transportation to get to a narcotics meeting. They developed community gardens. They did another place did a dog park. They cleared vacant lots. They developed a take back program for prescription drugs. So those are a lot of the things that were accomplished in a relatively short period of time. Some of them were much longer. For example, one community decided to set up an ongoing relationship and series of discussions between the judiciary and nonviolent offenders to look for ways forward that would be the most productive. Other people decided to connect people working with homelessness in terms of service providers at the state level as well as every county in the state. That took about a year or so to figure out and to get in place. Some of them involve what colleges could do. One of our great colleges in the state sponsored What's Next for their whole county. And in addition to that, they began sending college students from various programs across their campus into the community to go to policymaker meetings, to go to nonprofit meetings so that they could understand and be a part of the local community.
Betty, that's so inspiring and really helps make this work feel more concrete. Also, for those who are familiar with NIFI's three approach issue guides, how is the What's Next process slash guide a little different? How might it be similar?
Well, it's very similar in that at the heart of both, it has to do with people having a right, some would say even a responsibility to come together and talk about public issues. So that forms the basis of the need for deliberation. What's different about the What's Next America, and the What's Next West Virginia approach that is complementary to it, is that instead of having issues that are selected at the national level, people select their issues locally, what they want to talk about, what they want to think about. Instead of having a framework that's developed at the national level, people develop their own frameworks, not through the kind of intensive research and writing that's done in the at the national level, but through a series of questions that they can ask each other to develop their own framework. I would say in general, National Issues Forums has been wonderful at informing action. What's Next America takes that a step further. It actually is intended to lead to action. But both have a very strong focus on the role of the public and the need for public deliberation in a democracy.
That's wonderful. Kristen, moving on to you, can you talk a little bit about how the work in West Virginia and in Alabama formed the foundation for What's Next America?
Absolutely. So, as you've already heard, What's Next America has grown directly out of work that already has been happening in places like West Virginia, but also the work that I got to do with so many folks I see on this call in Alabama. The transformative moment for me came over a decade ago when I was working in Alabama with then Mayor Holly Cost, who you heard from earlier, and a group of scrappy middle school students. We had a forum series on youth and opportunity. And at the end of the series, The students kept asking what's next and wanting to know not only what the adults were going to do in the community, but what they could do to make their action ideas happen. So they worked with Mayor Cost to form a junior city council and got to work. And I'm pleased to say that junior city council is still active and strong, I think 13, 14 years later. But what was so powerful about that experience for me is that it showcased that the people closest to challenges in their communities also have the wisdom, relationships, experience, and the imagination that are essential to addressing those challenges. And that to me really is the foundation for What's Next America. This initiative is built from the same belief that communities do not need a national organization to come in with all the answers. What they often need is a little extra support to keep doing excellent civic work and to bring new people like the middle school students and ideas into the mix. That experience also highlighted for me how important it is to be intentional in planning deliberative conversations in ways that help people see themselves as civic actors and not on the sidelines in their communities or in our democracy, and to see themselves as able to work together to bring their ideas to life. After being regularly asked, not only by middle schoolers, but by others, the question, what's next, in communities across Alabama, I naturally turned to Betty, my Center for Civic Life big sister, to ask if we could adapt the What's Next model for Alabama leading up to the state's bicentennial in 2019, back when I was at the David Matthews Center for Civic Life. Adapting that model to help communities across the state reflect on the past while also building toward the future showcased for me the importance of utilizing those types of commemorations and anniversaries to not just tell the story of the past and to look back, but to also take stock of the present and build toward a shared future. The moment where the idea for What's Next America first occurred to me was at Alabama's bicentennial celebration in 2019. And I had what I thought was a far-fetched idea that I'd like to help people across our country ask What's Next America during the semi-quincentennial. And I'm incredibly grateful to a board and staff team and amazing partners that are bringing that far-fetched idea to life. So to sum it up, Christine, the West Virginia and Alabama examples help demonstrate that this work can be deeply rooted in place, shaped by local leadership, and still connect to a large state or national question. And so, as the country approaches its 250th anniversary, we think the question, What's Next America, belongs in every community across our country.
So, Kristen, we know that every community is different, right? So, how is What's Next America designed so that it can meet people where they are and be shaped by local leaders rather than feeling like a one-size-fits-all national program?
Absolutely. So we hope communities will make it their own so fully that they may not even call it What's Next America. Just as we saw with What's Next West Virginia and What's Next Alabama, we'd love to see communities rename it, reshape it, and adapt it so that it belongs to them. What's Next America is not a one size fits all program, and it's not intended to be a plug and play model that looks exactly the same everywhere. We definitely believe that every community has its own history and assets and challenges, relationships, and sense of possibility. And so we certainly hope that each group that utilizes What's Next tools and resources will implement it in the ways that make sense for their community. The structure is intentionally flexible, like Betty talked about. The guide offers a shared set of questions, but those questions are meant to open up local conversations, certainly not to control or limit them. They give people a common starting place while leaving a lot of room for adaptation, for people to bring forward the issues and the stories, choices, and hopes that matter the most where they live. What stays consistent, though, is the deeper practice of bringing people together to talk, decide, and act. I want to be really clear that we hope this initiative supports the good work people are already doing. We're not arrogant to think that we're starting something brand new. It's not meant to replace existing civic efforts, community conversations, leadership programs, organizing, service, or public problem solving. Our hope is that What's Next America can be a useful tool people can pick up, adapt, and weave into the work already underway. So we're really excited to walk alongside of partners as they do this work and to support communities as they have conversations that are useful for them and their future.
So, to me, this preview party feels like both a celebration and also a launch pad. So, how do you see today's gathering of partners and friends helping shape the next decade or so of NIFI's work?
Yeah, it definitely does feel like a celebration. We're celebrating the team that's put so much hard work into it, the partners who've helped shape and challenge it, and the board that's been so supportive, and so many people that have poured into creating this effort and building on the decades of work. Um, we're standing in this remarkable period between the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in 2026 and the 250th of the Constitution in 2037. And at NIFI, we are thinking about this next decade in a very intentional way. We see it as a chance to support communities in building and exercising the civic skills we will need for the next 250 years. Um, Building and exercising civic skills really matters to me and to our organization. These are skills we can't simply admire from a distance. We have to practice them. We have to strengthen them over time. It's my hope that What's Next America can be one tool to help more Americans build their civic skills and in so doing, develop a stronger sense of that civic efficacy. We're really excited to lift up stories of Americans already at work making positive change throughout What's Next America, and showcase how people are already solving problems and building trust and creating new partnerships and programs. Um, and part of our role will be to work with our partners, like all of you across the country, to gather and share those stories, or to provide platforms for people to share their own stories, most ideally. Speaking of our role, I don't envision the National Issues Forums Institute standing at the center of this initiative with all the answers. We're definitely working as a part of a network of committed people, organizations, and communities working to talk, decide, and act better together. And this work is not meant to be done alone at the community level either. It needs partners, it needs friends, it needs people who will carry it into their own spaces, adapt it, test it, improve it, rename it, like we said, and tell us and others what they're learning. For me, this is a really joyful moment, but also a serious one. We're celebrating what has been built and we're preparing for what comes next. I can't think of a better way to begin than with partners and friends like all of you who already believe that communities have the capacity to shape their own future. One of my mentors and the co founder of the David Matthews Center for Civic Life, Dr. Bob McKenzie, used to always tell me communities are not problems to be solved, but they're rich in capacity to leverage their assets to address the challenges that face them. And that is something that really inspires our ethos and approach with What's Next America. So we're excited to invite you, our partners, friends, and folks already doing the work to join us as we build toward our formal launch to the broader public on July 8th, which will be 250 years to the day since the Declaration of Independence was first read aloud to the public, which seemed like an appropriately symbolic moment for this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Betty and Kristen, for your leadership and also for sharing more about what brings us to today with What's Next America. So, we've already talked about the roots of What's Next America and the hopes behind it as well. But this work really only comes alive when people begin imagining what it could look like in their own spaces. So, now we want to turn to all of you for our next party activity. If you're able to message in the chat, please go ahead and share an idea, two ideas about what issue, challenge, or opportunity in your community you might want to address right now. And I'll give you a minute to do that before I launch in and share some examples as they pop in. Seeing lots of great answers in the chat right now. Housing affordability, voter access, redistricting, lots of housing affordability. That's really important. Information disengagement, more voter access, housing and food insecurity, education and health, affordable housing, water conservation. So many super important and also intersecting issues. In just a few minutes, clearly you've thought of so many challenges and opportunities to do such important work within each of your communities. So just imagine what your community members will be able to come up with when they sit down and go through a full What's Next America process. And speaking of a full what's next process, we know that this requires a lot of work, and we know that it can be a bit intimidating to organize something like this in your community. So we really want to share a swath of resources that we've created and prepared to help you in doing this work. First, we have our What's Next America website, which includes all of the resources that we will be discussing later in this call as well. And now I'll pass it over to Don Harfman, our program manager, who has some information about each one of these resources to share.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christine. Hi, everyone. I'm grateful and so honored to be with all of you today, and even more to have the opportunity to get to work with and know many of you going forward. So for today, as I introduce these resources, we'll put the links for each resource in the chat, and they'll also be on the website, like Christine mentioned, and we're also going to share them in a single list at the end of the meeting today. So don't worry if you miss one, there's a lot. Um, so, so we have our website, like Christine mentioned, and then we also, our next slide talks about our uh, our participant guides. And so this is a centerpiece of our What's Next resources. And we currently offer 3 versions of these, one tailored for a community context, one for a youth and K-12 context, and one for college and university settings. They're each a little bit different, but in each case, the guide will walk participants through 3 series of deliberative discussion questions centered around the overarching questions: where are we now, where do we want to go, and how do we get there? The link for the resources page of our website where you can access all of these guides will be in the chat, so you can explore each of them in greater detail at your leisure. Now, to accompany these participant guides, we've developed a planning guide for organizers and facilitators, and that's also accessible on the website as well. The planning guide offers more in-depth suggestions, tips, and resources for each part of the What's Next process. So convening and organizing conversations, facilitating the conversations, and moving towards action. And then to make it easier to share with others about what's next, or to recruit other people or organizations to join you in your local initiative, we'd like to share this Talking Points toolkit. That's also accessible on the website and in the chat as well. All of these resources are living documents to varying degrees, and so we'll be adding, for example, additional tools and toolkits to the planning guide, making adjustments to the participant guides over time as we incorporate insights gained over the years from folks across the network like you, as well as new insights that will emerge as we incorporate those into these materials. Alongside these guides and toolkits, we're also committed to developing tools and opportunities to connect with others thinking about or already working on What's Next initiatives, and facilitating learning across the network. So we've developed a map so you can see where other What's Next initiatives are starting. We have the link for that in the chat as well, and also a Google form where you can add a pin for your location to the map. It won't pop up right away. It's something that we have to add manually, but it'll get there. And then starting as early as next week, we'll be beginning a series of collaborative learning opportunities. So workshops, special topics trainings, drop-in hours. The schedule for these can be accessed on our What's Next calendar. And then on that, just one note that times on that calendar will show up in Eastern time. So anyone not on Eastern time, you can actually add at the bottom. There's a spot where you can actually add that calendar to your Google Calendar if you have one, and then the times will automatically adjust, I believe. But we also have on our workshops page of the website a listing of all of the workshops as well. So our first workshop will focus on convening and organizing and these conversations, What's Next conversations, and that'll take place on next Thursday, May 14th at 2 p.m. Eastern. In the upcoming weeks, we have workshops scheduled for facilitating What's Next conversations, moving to action, monitoring your impact. And we'll also be kicking off our new What's Next community of practice, which will be a chance to connect for both more seasoned practitioners and those completely new to deliberation or to using a talk to action deliberative approach. Our first community of practice convening will be Friday, May 22nd at noon Eastern. So everyone's welcome. We'd love for you to join us. Now at these workshops, periodically we'll be releasing other materials as well, including additional facilitator tools and a What's Next journal to help organizers of What's Next initiatives track their community's progress. All of these resources we see as a strong groundwork for more resources and tools to come as we learn alongside communities undertaking What's Next initiatives going forward. We've already begun assembling a suite of companion resources that complement our existing tools. And we wanted to share with you one of these today to give an example of the form that these kinds of companion resources might take. So this particular tool was developed by a longtime friend and collaborator of NIFI, Dr. Martin Carcassonne. Martin, many of you know him, I'm sure. But for those who don't, Martin is a leading deliberative scholar and brings important insights from the fields of communication and brain science to deliberative theory and practice. He serves as director of the Center for Public Deliberation at Colorado State University, and he regularly leads deliberations in and around the communities of Fort Collins. The exercise Martine will introduce us to today encourages participants to engage with the foundational question at the heart of deliberation, no matter the format: what do we do when values are in tension? In addition to being a meaningful standalone exercise, it can serve as an excellent lead-in to What's Next conversations to provide a common language and baseline to ground a group's conversation in values. It's also a great tool to turn to in the midst of a What's Next process if a facilitator or group identifies a need to pause and identify the values underlying differences in opinion on how to move forward. So with that, Martine, I'll hand it over to you to introduce the exercise.
Well, thank you so much, Don, and love all the energy in the room and all the kind of people. I know some of y'all have done this exercise, but my work for the last 20 years, we've run over 600 meetings. My background in argumentation, I've always had this focus on how do we talk about values, and I see values as inherent to all the different issues that we have and all the conflicts. And the reality right now is we talk about values very badly. People weaponize values. Values are something that often kind of divides us and contributes to the kind of exaggerated polarization that undermines our ability to work on our shared problems together. So I've been doing this exercise as part of training for 20 years for facilitators. We've started doing it in the community a lot more, and now I'm redeveloping it, adding some additional values like democracy and patriotism to really kind of connect it to the 250th. And how do we talk about American values as we kind of think about what's next? So we're going to be putting together, and we'll have, you'll see it on the schedule, just kind of creating a meeting in the box that I want, as many communities or neighborhoods or living rooms to kind of go through this process. So we'll be doing some training, we'll giving some examples, we'll be doing some coaching, we'll have videos and the lesson plans and the facilitation plans to help people learn the research and the theory behind values, and then practice having these deeper conversations about values. Right now, values talk brings us down. If we're able to switch and make talking about values something that brings us together and develops mutual understanding and sparks human creativity, we're actually switching from a negative to a positive, which is kind of a double whammy. So it was great just looking at the participants. I see people from libraries, from community foundations, from Braver Angels, from colleges and universities, from newsrooms. So I'm hoping to design this and connect with y'all's network to make it as easy as possible for people to kind of have these conversations in your communities and help as the basis to deeper conversations moving forward. Right at 2 minutes. So.
That was awesome. Thank you, Martine.
I had my instructions.
Teaser.
As a public speaking teacher, I know how to time it. So.
Perfect teaser for what we're so excited about. It's going to be an amazing resource for folks who are interested in so many of these important questions around our 250th birthday as a country and the conversations that for the future. So as I mentioned earlier, this work is not meant to be done alone. We would love to partner with you if you see What's Next as a useful tool for the civic work you're doing. But we also today wanted to showcase what partnership looks like for us. And so we wanted to feature some of the wonderful partners who have been a part of the process leading up to today, and to showcase a little about how they're envisioning What's Next America being a resource for them. So joining us today are Rebecca Trout, Senior Director of Programs and Partnerships with the National Civic League, Leslie Garvin, Executive Director of North Carolina Campus Engagement, and Herman Lehman, Community Coach with Keys to the City. So thank you all for joining us. We'll get them up on the screen. And first, I would like to turn to Rebecca from the National Civic League. We're so excited to partner with the National Civic League and wanted to ask you, how do you see the What's Next America initiative benefiting municipal leaders and serving as a useful resource for your networks? And how does What's Next America tie into some of the exciting programs and initiatives the National Civic League is leading? So Rebecca, I'll turn to you.
Thanks so much for having me, Kristen. We're really excited to be partners with What's Next America. I really think that this is going to be a huge value add to the communities that we work with and really municipalities all across the country because I think it's really going to give them an example and experience with co-creation, which, oftentimes communities, municipalities will go through extensive input and engagement processes around existing plans or policies. And while this is incredibly important and necessary, it also tends to end up being a little bit limited to the degree to which that input can really make a difference. And so plans or policies end up getting modified slightly, but they never really get a wholesale changed. And it's because residents oftentimes are not, and community partners are not brought in from the very beginning. Um, so I think this is going to be just a fundamental shift with how they work together with their communities. Really puts What's Next America is designed, as you've explained, to really put people on equal footing from the very beginning, giving them the opportunity to kind of frame the problem, deliberate, weigh the trade-offs with people who look and think very differently, and then decide on what to do and then act together. And I think for municipal leaders, that is going to like turn things very much so on their heads, and that is an experience that I think a lot of them need. And I'm looking forward for that being pretty transformational and really resetting their expectations for what authentic civic engagement and participation can be when done authentically. Um, on another level, it really takes some of the pressure off of cities. I think sometimes our municipalities get a bad rap. They're stretched very thin. They're asked to do a lot. Oftentimes, they bear the sole responsibility for service delivery. And this model will really give them active key partners. And so all of the service delivery, the action items aren't going to fall to them. They're going to be able to count on those community partners to do more of the work. And with that, that'll really build up the civic muscle or civic capacity, as you've mentioned already, of those community partners. And so, by residents and community stakeholders having an active leadership role from the very beginning in something like this, they're going to pick up all of these skills and build relationships that'll last well beyond the initial sort of action or initiative. And I think that's really going to give cities a deeper bench of civically skilled individuals that they can call on in the future. And I think the last thing that really comes to mind for me is the storytelling component. I run our All America City Award program where we recognize communities for outstanding civic engagement and collaboration. And through that, we've really seen the power of positive storytelling and the ability to kind of present a counter narrative to everything that's going on. Things are still getting accomplished. They're happening locally, and they're happening when co-creation happens. And so to be able to tell those stories, to buoy people's spirits, to inspire additional action, I just think that's going to be huge. And we can't really undersell the value of that. In terms of sort of our tie-in and how I can imagine the league is planning to partner with this, there's all kinds of ways, lots of exciting programs and initiatives that we're already doing. That this will be, both sides of the coin of value add, I think, to What's Next America, and What's Next America will be a value add to some of our initiatives as well. The two that really come to mind are Healthy Democracy Map. So for those not familiar, we've got over 12,000 democracy strengthening organizations geographically located and categorized based on their type of work that they're doing. It's an awesome resource, but we also oftentimes get asked, well, this is great, but now what? And I think What's Next America is just a fantastic concrete action step and answer to that questions. And so it's my hope the community is partnering and participating in the What's Next America initiative can really use the map to identify new organizations that they wouldn't have necessarily thought to reach out to bring those people along into their deliberations, create more active partnerships and collaborations. And then we would love to also create a dedicated layer of our map for the What's Next America forums, showing where they're happening, what themes are emerging, and even capturing some of those stories on a layer of that map. So again, just some mutual benefits that I see happening there.
I love the language you use of developing a deeper bench. I think that that's really something that really animates the whole program, bringing new ideas and new people into the mix. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we're very excited to keep working with the National Civic League and thankful for y'all's leadership in so many ways.
Thanks for
So I
having
want to
us.
return to Leslie Garvin, the Executive Director of North Carolina Campus Engagement, a very valued National Issues Forums board member, and a wonderful thought partner in all things deliberation and strengthening civic health. Leslie, we're so excited to partner with North Carolina Campus Engagement as you all consider doing What's Next North Carolina. How do you see What's Next benefiting North Carolina and serving as a useful resource for your network of college campuses? We also, you and I have had many conversations about localization. So the ability to localize What's Next is a key aspect of the initiative. What advantages do you see to localizing the initiative and supporting local leadership, ownership, et cetera?
First of all, congratulations to you and the team for bringing us to this point. So since 2013, we have been promoting deliberation in our network of 38 campuses. We believe it's a critical skill that folks need in order to show up as powerful, responsible citizens. But we had a twofold mission. It wasn't just to give students those skills, it was also to equip our campuses with the tools they needed to partner with their communities to take action on the issues that they cared about. I have to admit that we were heavy on the talking and the deciding and less so on the acting. And part of that is we needed tools like this. We needed something that said, okay, how do you frame this towards action? And when I heard about the great work that you were doing in Alabama and Betty, I kept dreaming that we could someday also do something similar. And so for us, we are hosting a workshop to launch the effort to actually train our campuses to have the capacity to have the conversations and then take them into their local context and actually work with their partners to begin to take action on those things that they really care about deeply. So for us, we definitely are going to leverage it so that our campuses have the tools to be able to have the conversation about what's next in their local community. We also are encouraging our campuses to think about that regionally, right? So if we have three campuses in a particular city or three campuses in a particular rural area of the different types of sectors, community college, four-year public, four-year private, we have a real vision of them together working on what's next in that community. So that's one piece of the puzzle. Another piece of that is the same time that we're doing that work, we're also helping facilitate the What's Next, the Civic Health NC initiative in our state, where we are looking at the outcomes of our Civic Health Index, our most recent one. We've produced four and trying to figure out, so now what? We had a summit last year. We're a bit overwhelmed by what we've learned about the state of our civic health. And now we have something to actually say, okay, we know where the areas are, the indicators where we need to grow and develop and strengthen our civic life. And so, how can we do that through these intentional conversation about what's next, North Carolina, and then what's next in each of the different communities? So, we have our second Civic Health Summit on June 29th, and we are excited to introduce this as a framework that folks can take back to their communities to really start to address our civic health deficits and to leverage the strengths. So excited for this partnership.
We're so grateful for you and your leadership, not only at NIFI, but just broadly. And thank you, Leslie. We're really excited and can't wait to be in North Carolina on June 9th. And now I want to turn to Herman Lehman to build on the theme of localizing What's Next initiatives. We want to highlight how communities may choose to adapt the What's Next resources and processes. And so I want to invite Herman from Keys to the City Community Coaching to share ways he and his community of Montevallo, Alabama, are planning to adapt What's Next for their context. On a personal note, Herman Lehman has been a valued partner for me since I first met him when he served as city clerk for the city of Montevallo. In that example earlier that I shared, he was the city clerk during that time. We've worked on many forums and deliberative decision-making series together over the years, and I'm excited for you all to hear from him today. So Herman, could you tell us a little bit about how you're planning to adapt the What's Next process to a challenge, opportunity, or decision that needs to be made in Montevallo? And could you also tell us why you see value in this approach to community problem solving?
Sure. Thanks, Kristen. I've been working with a local citizen group to convene a series of deliberative conversations regarding affordable accessible and available housing in our area. And as a result of that, it's about a year and a half effort that we've gone on. Our local Main Street organization has joined with us, and they're funding a professional housing study, sort of centered around our downtown, with like a 15-minute walk of downtown. And at the same time, this is Montevallo Main Street's 10-year anniversary. We're a designated community, and given that, our board's been discussing, holding a series of community conversations to identify our organization's priorities and develop associated action planning for the next 10 years. And when I heard about NIFI's plans for What's Next America, I kind of had you got peanut butter in my chocolate moment. I started thinking, this is the perfect time to sort of combine these two initiatives or these two efforts. So starting in June, we're going to convene a series of community conversations asking the question, what's next Montevallo? And we've tentatively scheduled 3 meetings already with the community at large, and we're working on 1 or 2 additional ones with the youth in our community. And we'll, depending on, what the demand is for that. And so the results of those conversations will then be integrated into our other ongoing planning efforts that we have, and we'll see what we come up with. And the reason that we like to use these variations on the deliberative model in our decision-making efforts is because we know it works. And has already been mentioned before, Montevallo is the home of the David Matthews Center for Civic Life, which is where Kristen was once the executive director. And so we've had a lot of training and experience holding deliberative conversations and developing action planning in our community, and a lot of people in our community have been involved in this, throughout the last, I guess, 15, 20 years now. Um, so, and then because of my experience in city government, I think Kristen also mentioned that I was city clerk for Montevallo, which is where Holly was the mayor. And I know it works. I've seen this work with things that we've done too. And the reason that I think it works is because of what I think Rebecca was talking about, which is the fact that it's grassroots, ground up efforts. And you know, I think that no matter how good our intentions are as decision makers, we're just doing things to people we serve, not with them, if we don't involve them, in the process. So that's sort of where we're coming from, and I'm excited about this effort, and I'm happy to be able to rebrand and sort of and do everything under the What's Next America, theme or whatever. So we're excited about it.
And we are excited and thrilled to be associated with What's Next Montevallo. It's very exciting. Well, thank you all. It's so wonderful to hear from you all. We're so grateful for your partnership. I invite all of you to join me in thanking Rebecca, Leslie, and Herman for taking time out of their day to share a little bit about how they're planning to connect with What's Next America. So thank you all. We really appreciate it. And we're very honored to be listed in the same sentence with any of you and to be your partners. So thank you so much. And now I'll turn it back to my wonderful colleague, Christine.
Shout out to our awesome partners. That was wonderful. NIFI is so grateful to be doing this work with all of you. So thank you for being here. And like Kristen said, What's Next is not meant to be done alone. So we're really hoping that you'll all join us in this journey. I will include the What's Next America email list sign up in the chat here. So all of you can sign up for that and stay connected. And in addition, I want to kick the mic over to Dawn to share some additional coaching and support opportunities so you know that you've got a team around you in this kind of work.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much, everyone, for all our speakers today and for just everyone being here to share this kind of kickoff with us. And so, yeah, we are here. We're excited to be of help in any way we can. That can look a lot of different ways. So about twice a month, we're offering virtual drop-in hours. And these are all listed on the What's Next calendar on the website and on the workshops page there. If you can't make those times or just want to chat one-on-one, you can always schedule a call with me. Um, and I can connect you with other members of the team as needed. We'll also be starting team coaching sessions, 1 to 3 hour sessions, mostly starting in the fall. But if that sounds interesting to you or potentially helpful to your team, or if you want to learn more, just send me an email. We can talk about that. If you are an organization or associated with an organization that might like to partner with NIFI on what's next, email me. We can get a call scheduled with the team as well. And then, of course, connect with us at our upcoming workshops, community of practice meetings. You can register for all of those on the website. We'll be adding more, of course, as we go forward. And if you are already working on a What's Next initiative, or as you get started, if you'd like to share your What's Next story or share photos or videos from your What's Next experience, we would love to help amplify those. And for that, please email Christine. The bottom line is we're here to help and to adjust and innovate in our ongoing What's Next programming based on what you all tell us is most needed and most helpful. And so now, as promised, we have the document with all the links from today in one nice clean list for you. So that document should be in the chat and can also be accessed with the QR code on the right-hand side of the screen there. And I think with that, I will turn it over to Christine to kind of wrap us up here.
Thank you so much, everyone, for taking a full hour out of your Tuesday to celebrate What's Next America with us. I know it was a very packed hour, so we appreciate you all for that. And this is a team effort, so it really means a lot that each of you is here to do this work alongside us.